Okay, here we go. Hello, and welcome to this live presentation of the 27th Street Railroad Crossing Study. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lisa Gray, the Public Involvement Lead for HDR. Over the next 2 hours, members of the Montana Department of Transportation and HDR project team will share details of the study and respond to your questions and comments. We believe this open house and question answer session will allow us to gather your input and provide the project team with information to design a better project. MDT is using online meetings to engage with the public rather than in-person meetings due to community health and safety concerns during the COVID-19 pandemic. We look forward to meeting in person again in the future. During today's session, MDT and project team members will provide a project overview, present the alternatives, and discuss schedule and next steps. A question and answer session will be held immediately following the presentation. Feel free to write your questions now or at any time during the presentation, and we will answer after the presentation is over. In order to participate in the question and answer session, locate the QA button on the bottom of your screen. Click the button, which is highlighted in green on the PowerPoint slide, and remember to hit send after you type your question. We cannot see your question unless you hit send. As a reminder, this session is being recorded and a copy of this meeting and the presentation will be posted on the project's webpage in the next 2 days. We ask you to invite your friends and neighbors who might be interested in the project to watch the video and fill out a comment form or send us an email if they have questions or comments. The project team consists of consultants working collaboratively with the department and include Rod Nelson, who is the MDT District Administrator for the Billings District, Mike Taylor, MDT District Engineering Services Supervisor, Kelly Williams, MDT Consultant Project Engineer, Tim Erickson, who is HDR's Project Manager, and Stephen Streeter with HDR. HDR is partnered with Dow's Doug Anderson, and you've already met me, Lisa Gray. I'll be your point of contact for the project. Now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Rod Nelson. Rod will take us through the project background and overview.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Rod Nelson. I'm the Billings District Administrator for the Montana Department of Transportation. Public involvement is a vital part of everything we do at MDT. So we are very appreciative of the opportunity today for sharing with you this very important project and you sharing with us your questions, comments, and concerns. Looking at the agenda for today's meeting, I wanted to start out by giving you a quick overview of the 27th Street Railroad Crossing Feasibility Study. Then Tim Erickson will be presenting in more detail the specifics of this very important project. The entire presentation should take about 20 minutes to complete, and then we'll open it up to questions and comments. Several years ago, a high-level statewide study was completed identifying the railroad crossing on 27th Street in Billings as being a high priority for MDT. So a more detailed study is now being conducted to identify specific solutions that are fundable and meet the needs at this location. The intent is to develop a feasibility study to determine short and long-term solutions for the existing at-grade railroad crossing on 27th Street. So with that, Tim is going to speak with you in more detail about the 27th Street Railroad Crossing Feasibility Study. Again, please don't hesitate to write us with any questions, comments, or concerns. If you prefer, you can email the project team anytime after the meeting. The project team contact information will be shown at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. Again, this is Tim Erickson with HDR, and we've been working with the MDT for the past few years on this project. And as most of you are aware, numerous studies have been done over the past 50 years, if not more, and including quite a few concerns from the community to our public officials as far as the safety of this crossing, and other concerns of the crossing when the frequency of trains that block the crossing and the abilities for emergency services to cross the crossing and some of those things. The study that Rod had mentioned was completed back in 2016, which was a statewide at-grade rail crossing study. And it did show that 27th Street was one of the busiest railroad crossings in the state, creates congestion, frustrated drivers, decreased downtown user experience, and has impacts to the emergency services. So looking at our study objectives, the previous studies that have been performed have been a much higher level study. Think of that as like a 10,000 foot level study. This study that MDT has moved forward with is a ground level study. We want to be on the ground with our surveyors, looking at geotechnical information, turning over rocks, finding pros and cons of different options, and put all that information into the alternative analysis that's being performed. Something to note with this study is Montana Rail Link has been an integral partner and stakeholder with MDT from the beginning of this project. Previous studies have identified or have looked at options to raise the tracks, lower the railroad tracks, or completely relocate the railroad tracks. And those have all been deemed infeasible for several different reasons and are considered a fatal flaw as part of this project moving forward. MDT and MRL have been very clear that this study is going to focus on the public infrastructure and find opportunities to improve safety and mobility of this crossing focused on that public infrastructure, which would be 27th Street itself. Part of the study, we want to identify short-term and long-term improvement solutions. And how we define short-term would be to leave the existing crossing as it is at grade and find ways for signal improvements, as well as what's considered ITS or intelligent transportation systems, to find improvements and have advanced warning to help motorists and users of the crossing know when a train is crossed, and to be able to find alternative routes if necessary. And how we have determined or defined long-term improvement solutions would be to look at a grade separation. So either over the tracks or under the tracks with traffic to help alleviate safety and mobility concerns. As we move forward with this study, we want to vet each solution through a transparent decision process and incorporate feedback from local stakeholders and the public. Through public meetings such as this, we have also had other public meetings, two previous public meetings over the last couple of years, and several stakeholder outreach opportunities, including meeting with different neighborhood task forces, the Downtown Billings Alliance, TrailNet, Policy Coordinating Committee, and now today with our third public meeting. We want to determine what should and can be implemented in the future, and your input is important to that success. So as we look at what has been performed as part of our analysis, the very first phase, we had a lot of brainstorming going on. What ideas are possible? What could happen here? And we want to, no bad ideas is out there. And so we wanted to have all the ideas on the table. We looked at taking all lanes of traffic over or under the tracks. We looked at taking just the center lane of traffic over or under the tracks. And through that analysis, we determined, especially with the 4 lanes or all traffic lanes going over or under, that created a severing connectivity to the downtown area by moving all traffic off of 27th Street either over or under the tracks. And so those options were removed from further analysis. So what you can see on the screen is where we currently are with recommendations for 2 different alternatives, as well as a no build, for further consideration. Those alternatives are a 2-lane overpass, meaning over the railroad tracks, with a single lane of traffic in each direction going over, and a 2-lane tunnel, so a single lane of traffic in each direction going under the railroad tracks. The next slide shows short-term alternatives recommended for further analysis. Some additional alternatives that we have looked at in the past was consideration for closure of either 28th or 29th Street crossings to see if there would be enough benefit to the railroad operations that could improve the 27th Street crossing itself. The conclusion of looking into that a little bit further, and again with MRL as a key stakeholder at the table with us throughout that process, is there was minimal benefits to railroad operations for closure of those crossings compared to the impacts that it had from connectivity from vehicular users and pedestrian users that frequently use those crossings at 28th and 29th to access different parts of downtown, either north or south of the tracks. So as previously mentioned, the short-term alternatives that we are moving forward with to look at are signal modifications and ITS. And in fact, the current 27th Street project that has been under construction for the last couple of years does include signal modifications at 27th Street and Montana Avenue, which includes a dedicated left turn signal in the southbound direction for 27th Street for that traffic on 27th Street to turn left onto Montana Avenue for when trains are crossing the tracks there. So the next slide shows what we call typical sections of the long-term alternatives that we are looking at further input and carrying forward to determine a preferred alternative for the community. A typical section is a slice of the project, and as you could look at it, to help visualize what that system could look like. In the upper part of the screen, you see existing conditions. Generally, the project area that we have been looking at is between 3rd Avenue South and 3rd Avenue North. In particular, these long-term alternatives generally start at around 1st Avenue South and they terminate around 2nd Avenue North. So within that stretch of 27th Street, there are currently 2 lanes of traffic in each direction, as well as some different turn lanes in the center, which is showcasing the existing conditions and sidewalks on the outside. The 2-lane overpass, as previously mentioned, would have a single lane of traffic in each direction going over the railroad tracks, while a single lane of traffic in each direction would stay at grade. That provides opportunities to maintain the connectivity through the downtown businesses, the adjacent cross streets for connecting to different areas of downtown, as well as providing opportunities for reduced traffic, slower speeds, and enhanced pedestrian user experiences in the downtown core. The 2-lane tunnel, very similar to the 2-lane overpass, however, that single lane of traffic would go under the railroad tracks. And what an advantage to this option is that a single lane of traffic that stays at grade can actually be moved towards the center of the roadway itself. And as you can see in that graphic, has wider or an option to widen those pedestrian facilities or multi-use facilities on the outside of the roadway, primarily between Montana Avenue and 1st Avenue North, enhancing the user's experience there. One thing to note about each of these alternatives, and something that has been asked about at previous public meetings as well as stakeholder outreach, has been the construction costs. So preliminary estimates that have been developed by our project team indicate that a 2-lane overpass would cost approximately $35 to $40 million, and a 2-lane tunnel option would cost approximately $85 million. The main drivers for the cost differences there is the constructability of a 2-lane tunnel, the overall impacts to the utilities, and as you can imagine, being in the downtown, you have water and gas and sewer and stormwater and several other communities, including fiber communications, electricity, that would need to be modified, relocated, or adjusted in order for a 2-lane tunnel to operate effectively. So the next slides show some of the renderings that our team has put together to help visualize what these different alternatives could look like. Starting with the overpass option, the first view is to the south of the railroad tracks looking to the north of the view of a 2-lane overpass. So something to point out here is an overpass provides opportunities for placemaking potentially under the structure. There's been many conversations going on with various stakeholder groups, special interest groups, and in fact, we have created an aesthetics committee to help explore ideas. So if a overpass was constructed, that it wouldn't just be a large concrete structure through downtown Billings. It would actually include placemaking. It would include opportunities to have a positive visual impact in the downtown area and be something that people want to go to. It could be a feature for our community with that different people want to become a destination in the downtown area. Some of those placemaking examples could include raised medians with landscaping that could include pedestals for local artwork and statues. As an example, they could have connectivity for even some different pedestrian facilities throughout the center. Maybe there's even an opportunity to close down segments of this roadway underneath and have the farmers market or other types of events underneath the overpass. So moving on to the next image, this is from 2nd Avenue North looking to the south. And as you can see here, this is what we would call a touchdown point or a starting point for the overpass option. This would be where the overpass comes back to grade with the existing roadway. You can also see how traffic would split to having one lane of traffic stay at grade and one lane of traffic in each direction use the overpass. Operations from a traffic perspective of the existing intersections and cross streets remain as is. And as the design moves forward, further analysis would need to occur to determine if the different turning movements at all the different cross streets and all the existing intersections are able to be maintained, primarily due from a safety perspective. The priority for both options is to maintain traffic operations through the intersections as they are today for what is the busier streets or the arterials. So that'd be 1st Avenue South, Montana Avenue, and 1st Avenue North. Other streets such as Minnesota on the south end of the project and 2nd Avenue North on the north end of the project in the overpass option maintain connectivity across 27th Street. But again, further analysis would need to be looked at to make sure that all turning movements crossing the way would be safe, primarily from a sight distance perspective, which means the ability for a driver to be able to safely see other vehicles, as well as pedestrians to avoid potential conflicts. And the last image for the overpass option is standing at 1st Avenue North looking to the east. And again, this is to showcase the opportunities that could exist that we want community input for aesthetic and placemaking opportunities. So it's not just a standard concrete bridge through the downtown core. So what could that look like? Moving on to the tunnel options, we have a few renderings of that. And the first one is standing at 1st Avenue South, looking to the north. And again, this would be what is considered the touchdown point or the starting point of the tunnel. And you can see how traffic diverts to either go underneath the railroad tracks or stay at grade for the future connectivity or the further connectivity of the downtown core. The next image is south of the railroad tracks looking to the north. This actually shows the start of the tunnel. So in order to obtain the necessary vertical clearance for legal vehicles, highway legal vehicles, in order to pass underneath the railroad tracks, a certain distance is needed to get down below that grade. And so everything to the south on the tunnel option would be open air, and the tunnel itself starts just on the south side of the railroad tracks. If you can start to see, traffic to the north of this does start to move in with the lanes that start, or the lanes that do stay at grade, which does enhance the space and the placemaking and pedestrian bike opportunities that would exist between Montana Avenue and 1st Avenue North. And finally, the last rendering of the tunnel option is at 2nd Avenue North, looking to the south. And you can see the north end of the tunnel, just to the north side of 1st Avenue North. And this showcases what was mentioned about the cross-street connectivity. So in the tunnel option, the connectivity maintains at the existing intersections of 1st Avenue South, Montana Avenue, and 1st Avenue North. However, at 2nd Avenue North, as well as Minnesota Avenue on the south side, those streets become right in, right out access because of the grade differences and the inability in order to cross 27th Street with those options. So what are the next steps of the study? Well, it starts with our virtual public meeting held today and obtaining additional input from the community, stakeholders, and others. We want to continue our business and stakeholder outreach that has been ongoing, and we want to continue that on into the next few months. We have developed an aesthetics committee of 6 or 7 members to put those people together, bring their heads together to see what opportunities there are to make this truly a destination place for the community where people want to be, people want to enjoy, and people want to go to. From that, and the input from the public and stakeholders, we would like to be able to determine a preferred alternative, primarily for that long-term alternative option of either an overpass or an underpass early in 2021, which would then allow our team to put together preliminary design plans by the summer of 2021. Having preliminary design plans for the preferred alternative of what the community wants and what could be practicable for improving the safety and mobility of this crossing will allow MDT to determine future funding opportunities and consider the project for programming into their fiscal planning in coming years. And at this time, I will turn it back over to Lisa. And there is contact information available, and we will start the question and answer session.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Rod. As previously mentioned, MDT will use public input from this online meeting to develop and refine the 27th Street Railroad Crossing project, and will continue to work closely with the community and stakeholders. So we hope you will stay involved in the project. Now we'd like to open the meeting to questions. I don't have any questions up yet. Remember, in order to participate in the question and answer session, please locate the QA button on the bottom of your screen, type in your question, and click the send button. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So our first question, why wasn't it possible to elevate the tracks? Elevated tracks could greatly reduce blockage at all crossing if extended from 13th Street to more. In other cities, they have elevated rail systems. They've had elevated rail systems for many years. Jim, would you like to take that?
Yeah, sure. So with the previous studies that have looked at that, as well as our coordination with Montana Rail Link, elevating or lowering the tracks for that matter, based on the location of this crossing and the yard and operations of Montana Rail Link on either side of it, as well as all the different industrial spurs that come off of their railroad tracks, raising or lowering the tracks would actually have to sever most, if not all, of those industrial spurs, which serves a lot of the vital businesses in the downtown and industrial areas of Billings. And so that was a fatal flaw and was not going to be considered to move forward at all. And was a lot of the discussion about focusing this on the public infrastructure for this study itself.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, do either the underpass or tunnel option have pedestrian traffic?
So neither the underpass or the tunnel option have pedestrian traffic on the actual structure or the alternative itself. One of the drivers for that is the overall safety or ability in order to, primarily at the beginning and end of either of the structures, to get pedestrians to the middle of the roadway and then follow along with that traffic. And the majority of the traffic that would be using either the overpass or the underpass is going to be traffic that's dedicated to go from the interstate to the airport or hospital corridor, those types of things. And so really where the focus for the pedestrian traffic is to maintain at grade, however, also knowing that there are still options for the pedestrian overpass at 25th Street over the railroad tracks. That is still a part of the conversation through city county planning, as well as there could be future opportunities for a dedicated pedestrian overpass, possibly at 28th or 29th. And so those those different features or considerations for the pedestrian traffic is why that the overpass or the tunnel doesn't have pedestrian facilities themselves.
Thank you. The next question, is there any possibility for a left turn at Minnesota Avenue with the tunnel option?
Is there any possibility for a left turn at Minnesota Avenue with the tunnel option? At this time, what we have not looked at a dedicated left turn lane at Minnesota with the tunnel option. There could be, by extending the limits of the tunnel, which would actually require it to go further south than First Avenue South to maintain connectivity at First Avenue South, that'd be the way that you could have a left turn at Minnesota, keeping Minnesota at grade above the tunnel option, without having to do a flyover type of structure over the top, which would be very extensive in the cost.
Thank you. The next question is, are there examples of overpasses that create places people want to be?
We don't have direct examples of that, and that's exactly what we want to have with the aesthetics committee and input from different folks. There are definitely ways to make these community amenities and make it be a place that people want to be. And that's what we want. That's what we, in order for MDT to want to move this forward, have it be a place that fits in, makes improvements, fits the vision of the community. And in fact, with the different outreach that we've had with the different stakeholder groups mentioned earlier in the presentation, as well as some of the ideas that have already been floated around the aesthetics committee, we feel very positive about those opportunities for being a placemaking opportunity there.
Thank you, Tim. I stumbled over that too. We might have to change the name of that committee. Okay, the next question is, what is the estimated construction timeline for each option?
So the estimated construction timeline for each option is anticipated, knowing it's fairly aggressive, but anticipated 2 years for each option. And to further expand upon that, with a tunnel option, knowing the extents of the construction, knowing the sensitivity required for the different construction techniques with adjacent buildings and other things in the downtown area, 27th Street would likely need to be closed throughout the duration of that construction of the tunnel. Whereas with an overpass and the length of that being in a 2-year construction timeframe, you likely could maintain traffic, a single lane of traffic in each direction for quite a bit of the duration of the construction of an overpass. There would be times with the construction of an overpass that would require closing off to traffic purely from a safety perspective. But there would be opportunities from construction sequencing to be able to maintain traffic with an overpass construction.
Thank you. Montana Avenue is one of our most attractive streets. Could we build this crossing at a different cross street?
I'm trying to understand where maybe there's a little clarification from the question, but as far as focusing on this, 27th Street is a vital connection from a safety emergency services perspective, being a major arterial, north and south arterial, and having that crossing, rise to the top with previous studies as far as one of the most congested, one of the most priority areas for safety improvements that could benefit from a grade separation. The focus has been on 27th Street.
Christine, if that didn't answer your question, write back to me and I will give you my contact phone number, and we can get more clarification for you. Either that or email me after the meeting if you'd like. You get the next one too, I think, Tim. Can you explain the noise study for the overpass option?
Yeah, that's a great question. On MDT's website, there is a graphic of a noise study that has been performed as part of this project. And what was really interesting about the noise study, and pretty fascinating actually, the project team, when we got the results back, was it looked at the no build alternative with a 20-year planning horizon on traffic growth, and then looked at the tunnel option as well as the 2-lane overpass option, again with that same 20-year traffic growth. And different noise receptors were placed in different areas along the project limits. That also included various floors, various higher floors at the DoubleTree and the Northern hotels. And what was really fascinating about the study, and again, it's available on MDT's website, that's linked on the screen right now, or the web address is on the screen right now, is both the 2-lane overpass and the 2-lane tunnel showed a decrease in decibel levels for the majority, if not all the areas, including those areas higher up in the hotels, compared to the no build. And the primary reasoning behind that is both the tunnel and the overpass have a substantial amount of traffic that gets taken off of the area that stays at grade. So in the case of the tunnel, traffic goes underground, and so the noise of that traffic gets blocked, or even when it's in the areas that's not blocked up above, it's directed upwards on the noise because it has kind of tunnel walls, if you will, that are being developed. With that traffic in the overpass alternative being up above, it's less traffic than what's down below, and it doesn't project as high because it's not as congested. Whereas the traffic that stays down below, some of the noise actually gets blocked by the overpass. So I'd encourage you to look at the graphic and follow up with any further questions that you might have about that noise study.
Thank you. Next, would you discuss the worst case wait time for vehicles to make it through the crossing as determined through the study?
So previous investigations that were undertaken, for sure MDT has, if not city and others have looked at the crossing times, and they vary, as any of us that have been blocked by the trains know that they vary. But I believe the worst case scenario was around 13 or 14 minutes of the actual crossing being blocked. So then as far as the time it takes for the vehicle to get through, it would just depend on how far in the queue, meaning how far in the backed up traffic you are, and then also the signal cycles in order to, once they go green, in order to actually get through the intersection or through the crossing.
Okay, we only have one question left, and generally after we're out of questions, we wrap up fairly quickly. So if you've got a question, please try to get it in the queue for me. Our last question is, would the tunnel option be open cut and installed from above or bored through underground?
So based on the length of the tunnel, more than likely it would be open cut and installed from above. We would definitely want to have conversations with different contractors to see what the feasibility could be for board. Another thing about open cut would be due to the existing high water table, needing to almost build a reverse bathtub, if you will, to keep the water out, could be advantageous from doing open cut. So at this time, we assumed it would likely be installed open cut.
Okay. Are there plans to improve the crossings at 21st and 13th while the 27th Street crossing is under construction?
At this time, no, there would not. So again, with the overpass option, likely the ability to maintain traffic at grade throughout the duration of the construction. And then with the tunnel option, if traffic does need to be shut down, it could possibly be phased in order to maintain some connectivity or crossing of those tracks. But as part of this project, improvements are not planned at 21st and 13th crossings.
Okay, thank you, Tim. That is all. Oh, one just popped right up. Okay, so our question is, he's sorry if this was previously mentioned, where did the project team land with improving the railroad crossings to the east? Improve those two for additional traffic, meaning 4 lanes, and keep 27th as is.
So this project did not look at the overall diversion of traffic to either 21st or 13th, or the opportunity to improve those to a 4-lane facility or 2 lanes in each direction. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, this project looked purely at 27th Street as previous concerns from the community, previous public outreach or public comments to commissioners and MDT about this crossing in particular has risen enough, as well as the previous study, statewide study, that showed this crossing as being a concern from a safety mobility perspective. So this project did not look at modifying 21st or 13th to a 4-lane facility.
Thank you. The next question, for the tunnel option, where would a driver need to join the lane to go underneath? I think you called it the touch point. It looks like the tunnel interrupts 2nd Avenue North.
Yep, so with the tunnel option, it begins at 1st Avenue South and then comes back to grade or connects back up with the existing roadway between 2nd Avenue North and 3rd Avenue North. Sorry, it begins at 1st Avenue South. I misspoke there. Begins at 1st Avenue South and would come back to grade with the existing 27th Street between 2nd Avenue North and 3rd Avenue North. And so yes, the tunnel option does interrupt a connectivity across 27th Street for 2nd Avenue North, and 2nd Avenue North would become what's considered a right in, right out access road on both sides of the tunnel.
Thank you. I'm just trying to clarify a question. So I've just sent our next questioner a clarification request. So we're going to skip you until you respond to that, and we'll go on to the next one. Okay. Either an overpass or a tunnel are in opposition to urban design principles for achieving a more walkable, vital downtown. Don't these options make more problems than they solve?
So appreciate the input, and if there are studies or other things that can be shared, please share that with our team, because that's some of the input that we want to have. With the discussions that we've had with stakeholders, again, it's DBA and TrailNet and people that are very passionate about improving Billings as a whole and improving the downtown of Billings. We have received very positive feedback about the opportunities that these could provide, primarily because it gets a lot of the through traffic off the streets and provides safer opportunities with less conflicts for those using in that walkable connectivity to businesses in the downtown area, and possibly even combining those with, what opportunities are there to combine some of the access or placemaking opportunities with this, with walking malls or different areas of side streets that get closed for different events and things like that, and really tying that together as an overall downtown area. So that's been the information and feedback that we've received with the different groups that we have had conversations with, and it's been very positive. And so if you do have some additional information, please send that to us, and we can follow up with further discussion.
Okay, Tim, and I've got one final question, and I'm not quite sure, you might be able to help me out with this. Has there ever been hopes for improving those two crossings? And because I'm not connected to what two crossings we were talking about, oh, never mind, I got it. Yeah. 21st and 13th. Yeah. So, okay, has there ever been hopes for improving 21st and 13th? Do you know?
I am not aware, as far as what our study team has looked at and the conversations we've had with the city and MDT. I'm not aware of any plans for improvements to either of those crossings.
Okay, thank you. How would you drain water from the tunnel that is a constant problem for current underpasses? And so we could probably expand that a bit to rain or snowy weather, that kind of thing.
You bet. Yeah. So absolutely good comment. That is a a problem or a maintenance concern more than anything of current underpasses. Generally underpasses, and this tunnel option is no different, would require a pumping system. And the pumping systems do have maintenance requirements, and if they do fail or they underperform, then there are some future improvements that cost some sizable money. And examples of that could be at 6th Street underpass, as well as the underpass in Laurel, that pumping systems need to be improved and replaced. And if those pumping systems don't work like they should, then sometimes that tunnel needs to be closed during heavy rain events in particular. So that could be from rainwater, also from snow melting going into the tunnel option.
Thank you. Do you have total installed cost TIC figures for each option at this time?
Yep. So the anticipated, and again, this is preliminary engineering. It's better than a back of the napkin sketch, if you will. But our preliminary probable cost of construction, so that would be the total construction costs to build either alternative, has the overpass between $35 and $40 million, and has a tunnel option at approximately $85 million.
Okay, thank you. That's our last question. I'd like to give you just a few more seconds to, if you have another question, go ahead and pop it in front of us. In the meantime, I will thank you all. I realize that we're all tired at the end of the day and everybody is quite busy. The team very much appreciates you participating in these, and we hope that you will continue to. Rod, did you want to close us out?
Yeah, absolutely, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Very well done. Also want to thank everybody that attended this evening in this meeting. It is very much appreciated that you take time out of your day to help us out here and provide that input that we so badly are desiring. And, you know, if you have more questions as you continue to think about this or into the future, that contact information is up there on the screen. We would love to continue to hear from you. So again, thank you, and hope you have a great evening.